Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So there's several ways here that you could get involved with Restore Justice and trying to change the world one baby step at a time, as we like to say. I'm just going to mention real quick about the family group, which I'm sure there were people on watching the movie. Our family group started, geez, it's got to be a decade ago. And I know for myself, for those who don't know me, again, I'm the outreach director, and my son, Eric, was incarcerated and sentenced to life in prison when he was 15 in 1995. So for several years, I kind of just struggled by myself. I didn't know anyone whose son was in prison. I certainly didn't know anyone whose son got life in prison. So I really felt alone and isolated. And of course, you have that shame and guilt that goes along with having someone you love in prison. And when we developed the family group, suddenly it gave myself and all my family members a voice in a way that you could listen and talk and not be judged. And it was hugely important. There was a time where I couldn't even say that my son was in prison without bursting into tears. Recently, we had a mom join us in December at our meeting who'd never been. Her son's been in for 15 years. And she was very tearful when she talked, because that's what happens the first couple of times you actually voice what actually happened to you. So the family group meets monthly. Restore Justice makes this possible. Prior to COVID, we used to do a family trip down to Menard, which is 370 miles away. And when COVID ends, we hopefully will be able to take family members down there again. Menard is a very difficult place to visit. A lot of our family members are older, or they don't necessarily have the money to go down there and spend on a hotel. So it's really a great trip that we sponsor. So that's my family group, CRIC. It stands for Communities and Relatives of Illinois Incarcerated Children. And we consider children under the age of 25. So you can do it about that. And then I'm going to let Lindsay maybe touch base on our advocacy team and how that works and how you can join.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And I just want to make a quick announcement before I jump in. You may have noticed that we're recording this. If you would prefer not to be recorded, you can just turn off your camera. We may use recordings or parts of this on our website. So just so you know, that's why we're recording it. Thank you again for being here. I am the policy director. So that means I get to work on the legislation that Restore Justice initiates every year to try to make a dent and to try to change the system that is so broken right now and that keeps kids locked up for life. Many of you probably know that we are the only country in the world that incarcerates kids for life without the possibility of being able to return home or to show that they've been rehabilitated. We are so blessed and grateful that now we have several amazing people as part of our team who have been able to come home due to some court decisions, but the courts have not done enough. So it's up to us to make changes in the legislature. And that's where I want to invite you to join us. We have an advocacy team, which Alyssa has put a link in the chat. So if this is resonating with you, just check it out. There's not a commitment when you sign up for the advocacy team, other than to say you'll receive information from us. What that'll look like is starting really soon, because the session is so early this year. It's going to start January 4th. So the new year is going to start, and then the legislators will be back in Springfield on January 4th. So we'll start sending you information about bills and when they're in committee, when we need a witness slip, when we need help emailing or calling your legislator or doing an in-district meeting with them. We'll send you that information. So being on the advocacy team means you're the first to know, and you're going to get to know all the things that you can do week to week about what would be helpful. The other really cool thing for the advocacy team is we have an optional meeting every Friday. It's going to be at noon this year from every Friday from 12 to 12:30. And you can just drop in. There's no commitment. If you can make it, that's great. If you can't, no big deal. But it's just a chance for you to hear directly each week to week what's happening. So if you like getting that information, knowing from week to week what's happening, where you can make the biggest impact, we invite you to join those. We also have several trainings scheduled. So for the month of January and for February, we have a link for that on our website. You can check that out. We're going to be doing virtual and in-person trainings. We have one training. If you're new to this, I highly recommend it. It's about how a bill becomes a law, ways that you can get involved. Then in February, we'll do another training that's more specifically geared to our advocacy team. It'll be a deep dive into our bills, and it'll help prepare you for legislative meetings. That is really the heart and soul of what we do. And I think where we make the most impact is when we build relationships with our legislators and we let them know about what's important to us, and to be able to talk about it in a way that resonates with you as an individual. So it could be however you're impacting it. Maybe you have lived experience, maybe you have a family member, a friend. Maybe it's an issue of justice or of your faith. We'll help you think about how you want to express that so you can be an effective advocate. So those are some ways that you can get involved. And I am going to pass it to my good friend, Harold.
Hello, everybody. Again, I'm Harold Hageman. I want to thank you all for participating and being here. So good to see you all. In terms of taking action, I just ask that people invest more in our youth. Again, I'm a youth mentor coordinator at Precious Blood Ministries, and I wish I had a Precious Blood Ministries coming up. You know, it's no telling what impact it would have had on my life, but I have to imagine it would have been a positive one, and I might not have, made some of the mistakes and missteps that I did. But these kids, man, I deal with at-risk youth, and they come from a lot of trauma in the communities and the households. They, come up seeing a lot of things and experience a lot of things that no child should ever see or experience, and sometimes it's easy to write them off as they're just bad and, they're just wild kids, but the reality is that they're just misguided, and a lot of the things that they've seen and experienced reflect on the individuals who they are, or the way they view or perceive things. And like at RJ, we worked, tirelessly, and still, work tirelessly to advocate for, change within the criminal justice system, and, to abolish juvenile life without parole, and we advocate for juveniles with extreme sentences. But, we could do more work as well on the front end, in terms of preventative measures to keep them from going down those roads or those paths. Because every time they come off the porch in these communities, every time they, leave the porch, it's like they hit a fork in the road, right? And any moment, it could go left, right? So we kind of want to, invest in community centers like Precious Blood, or any community center or youth center that you might have in your community. Can invest in those and donate those, so we can keep these programs going, and keep them engaged in activities. And take it too long?
Okay, what I see that Judy raised her hand, so I was wanted to give her a chance to ask. I think she's probably going to ask you a question, Harold.
No problem. No problem.
All right, Judy.
I guess what I just wanted to say. So I'm a board member of Restore Justice, and one of the things that I just want to be really be sure that everybody understands, it's not just these people who are in prison and come out and they're there too long. It's the impact it has on their whole community. The fathers that aren't there to be with their sons, the brothers that aren't there, the people that aren't there. And I think that it's really important to understand how impactful it is that, that so many of these men are locked away and don't have the chance to be an important member of their family. And I guess the other thing I want to say is that because I'm a board member, I've had the really joy of meeting about 5 or 6 of the men that have come out of prison that we have been working with. And I just sit there thinking, how could these people be locked up any longer? They have so much to offer, and they have so much to offer their community in terms of the kind of work that they do and the kind of insights that they have. And it's just really heartening to meet you, Harold, and all the other men who have come out. It's just really, any stereotypes you have, just go, wow, maybe I'm not quite right about this. Now, I'm not saying every person that's in prison is going to come out and be a saint. We don't know. But I think that we're wasting a lot of really, really great talent in prison.
I want to say too, to give you an update on Eric, my son. in 2012, there was a US Supreme Court ruling called Miller v. Alabama that allowed Eric to be resentenced. It allowed Wendell, who's on our team, James, who's on our team, Nelson, who's on our team. All of those men were sentenced to die in prison. Before their 18th birthday, they were sentenced. My son Eric received 30 years, super complicated. But anyway, he's got an out date now, 2025, hopefully 2024, with some legislation that came through with good time. But we've had some bad decisions come out very recently out of the US Supreme Court. This court right now, we can no longer count on them for decisions. And we had some tough decisions come out of the Illinois State Supreme Court. We can no longer count on them. We have to make changes. We have to get the legislators to make changes. We have to. So that's why it's really important for our advocacy team and for our family members to get involved. I just wanted to reach out to any of you who had any questions for Harold, because about how he started his spoken word, because I thought it was, the first time I heard it, I actually cried. And I'm kind of stoic now after years of being ground down by the Illinois Department of Corrections. So for him to actually make me cry was, I thought, a lot. He really reflected on a young person and the fear they have of being cool and yet being afraid when something happens and wanting their mom. Like, that's our whole young person thing. You know, they're super bad. I could swear, right? Super badass out on the street, but then they get home and they're mama's boy, right? So Harold, I just wanted you to maybe reflect on what brought you to, because it was beautiful.
Well, yeah. So I've been writing since I was like 12. It's always been kind of a way for me to escape, you know, the madness around me, but to kind of express myself at the same time. And I see a lot of things. I've taken a lot of things. I've experienced a lot of things, and sometimes you can like feel a way about a certain thing and not, be able to express it in a way that people will get it. And so I think kind of it's expressing it through the spoken word, and rap music, things of that nature is a way, to kind of get everybody engaged. Like you can kind of really get a feel for it. And I'm sorry, something's popping up on my screen. But so like I'm really passionate about our kids, and I want people to understand that these are children that we're talking about. Like that's why I made it a point to they put in the chat, when the child gets in trouble, stop picturing the man like as descriptive as the story was. I didn't want people to think this was some dark, sinister, sophisticated plot, right? These are children is being children, doing silly stuff that children do that sometimes unfortunately carry adult consequences, but they can't even fully appreciate the gravity of that, right? So and that was just my way of expressing that in a way that I feel would be more easily received by an audience than just sitting and just rambling on about it, so it's kind of my thing, I guess.
Well, you did a lot of writing while you were in custody, I like to say. Actually, that's my new word I'm going to try to use. Instead of incarcerated, in custody. Maybe it's not so harsh. But does anybody have any comments for Harold, or any questions for anyone? Or me or Lindsay?
Well, I'll comment. I wrote in the chat, but Harold, it was really powerful. And I spent almost 12 years as an assistant defender, and my job was trying to tell people stories. And like you did in that short amount of time, more than I ever did in my 12 years. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was something else.
Was a very powerful person.
Yeah, that was something else I felt it was important to point out. Like, a lot of people don't even know what felony murder is. Like, what the heck is that? And when you explain it to them, like, what? That's not a thing, like nobody, believes that something like that can happen to a child, but it does. And I know many stories of it, many cases of it. I've done time with those guys, and that got us through. Like a lot of times those writings and those expressions kind of got us through. I know it was a great coping mechanisms for me, and to share it with the guys, like you talk to a Wendell or Nelson, you know, they tell you like, man, you know, some of those pieces got them through. Like, you know, I can sometimes tell our stories in a way that other people, you know, would like to express it, but they can't. And so I kind of promote that too. Like what I was saying about invested in the youth centers and things of that nature, you know, starting our program here, of course, too, because everybody, you know, like these kids have a lot to say, you know, and sometimes they express it in ways that are not so, you know, savory. So I try to get them to channel it in other ways and, you know, kind of express themselves and vent and get some of that stuff out in any way possible. So, you know, but I know that's what
we
did it
need.
for me.
That's what we need, is we need people who better to be a messenger to someone who's at risk now, right? Than someone who's lived it and really, and a lot of our wonderful guys that, and it's always amazing to me, like when they showed those three guys, Nelson and James and Wendell on our movie, talking about being home. I met all three of those when they were wearing prison blues in the visiting room where we would visit in Menard. That's where I met them. And at the time I met them, none of them ever had a chance to come home. And life is so devastating, that sentence of this black hole. And we're working so hard this year. Our big goal is to end juvenile life, which is 21, under 21. Juvenile life without parole. It's a really big mission of ours. It's been a mission since day one. No child should ever say that they never, no matter what they do, no matter how good they are, what they do inside, that they would die in prison. It's devastating to the families, to their mothers, I know, their fathers, their siblings, the community at large. The community needs these guys. They need them to come out and spread a mission. Also, Crick, right now, we currently have started once a month, and Alyssa will put in the chat where you can check out our self-advocacy, loved one self-advocacy trainings. And these are, we did grievances. Actually, this past Monday, we talked about the grievance system in the prisons, because that's the very first thing every complaint starts with. We're going to go into medical issues and how you can advocate for your loved one. And there's some other topics. And one of them really big is self-advocacy. When a prison turns you down and says you can't visit, the steps you can take as a family member to either report that officer, report their behavior, or try to get back on a visiting list because they suspend visits for mothers. I know one guy inside, 8 years his mother was suspended. She passed away before she ever got to see her son, before they let her back in. So those are really important issues. And when you have someone locked up, there's no training guide that says, hey, here's what you got to do. Here's what you got to do to help your prison, the person you love who's in prison in the worst place you can imagine. So those are really, really important. I hate to call them trainings, just discussions with people who maybe have experienced that. We still have some time. So if anybody has any questions, oh yeah, we have a nice size room, so we can do that.
Does everybody
Okay.
on this call, understand what felony murder is? I see a couple shake, raise your hand if you don't know, because we should tell you.
Or we should just tell you anyway, so you don't have to put yourself out there. I'll let Lindsay tell you.
Harold, do you want to give it a quick,
Or, yeah.
or whoever, whoever should.
Yeah, I think the best way would be to kind of paint a picture kind of, you know, that's relevant to the piece I did. So let's just say you have a situation where you have a few kids, you know, they're out and about and they're running around, they decide to go into a gas station, right? And they're kids and they're silly, you know, they're laughing and playing, acting silly, and one decides, hey, let's snatch a few bags of chips and run out, right? So one, you know, he snatches the chips, they run out the door. It's three of these guys, so his two friends run out behind him. As the last guy is leaving out the door, the store owner pulls out a gun, shoots the kid in the back, kills him. The guys that were with him, right, his accomplices, if you will, are charged with the murder of that kid, right? And the store owner is in charge, right? Yes, Sarah, that. That's the reaction I always get. Yeah, the children are charged with the murder of their friend and charged to the fullest extent, in fact.
And it would be the same thing if one of you are with a group of friends and one of them goes to the store and he kills somebody, but your friends are outside the store.
Nothing to do with
They
it,
are
yeah.
charged with the murder as well, just because they were with him. That's what felony murder is.
And just one more clarification, like felony murder, you have to have the intent to commit a certain offense, but you don't have to have the intent to kill. So if something happens that is related at all to the offense that you intended to commit, if it's a felony and then someone dies, you can be held accountable for the murder. And through the accountability, they widen the net. So if you were in the car with someone, or even like talking to someone, and then they wanted to commit like a burglary, and then that person wound up killing someone on accident, but you'd agree to somehow help them with the burglary, you can then be held accountable for felony murder. So it's just like this crazy, crazy trap.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing that was important to point out. Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, if you're in the commission of a crime, someone dies while in the commission of a crime, you're going to be charged with felony murder.
There's felony
Which means
murder.
they went, in my scenario, you charge with murder for stealing a bag of chips. Unfortunately.
There's
So can I-
accountability.
Oh, I'm sorry, Julie.
No, go
can
for
I-
it, Sarah.
I just want to ask, and is this, I was just, reading as I do, has the implementation or the sort of use of this increased over the years because of the industrial complex of prisons? Is that, I mean, as one of the 4,800 things that contribute to it, how much is it that we're also in a for-profit prison system? And that we're making, I mean, money is being made on the backs of that poor kid who stole a bag of chips.
The system, we're tough on crime, right? That's the whole thing. The 80s and 90s decided that we had to be tough on crime. We know that long prison sentences do not deter crime at all. But it makes a good story when people are elected. Illinois is not a for-profit in some ways. I mean, but you have, the phone system, they make a ton of money. The people who supply the food make a ton of money. There's all sorts of side contracts. And then of course we have, the whole entire employee base. So yeah, I would guess we have to fill up the prisons to keep that. But we have felony murder, we have accountability, but you know what Restore Justice is also about is kids are different. And I don't care if you're the one who pulled the trigger. If you're a kid, you just don't get it. So I often consider ourselves like the guilty project, because we just think it's wrong to take someone who's young and just throw them away. And we're not saying people shouldn't be held accountable, but we're saying there should be a way, and a correct way. And throwing someone's life away for over 20 years and 30 years and 40 years is just, it's enough. It's so that's our motto. We think people who are guilty are deserving of a second look too. I'm gonna ask Lindsay if she has something.
Yeah, that was really beautiful. And I just want to emphasize that, we are working to end juvenile life without parole, but we're also working to reform felony murder, to change the accountability law, to reduce or eliminate truth in sentencing, which is another thing we haven't talked about, but makes people serve just extreme, horrendous lengths of time of their sentences without being able to earn any credit off of that. So a murder sentence can be 60 years or longer. or less, but every day of that has to be served if someone was sentenced after 1998 because of truth in sentencing. So if you're serious about addressing the mass incarceration problem, about wanting to reduce the prison population, then all of the bills that Restore Justice works on will be of interest to you. So join our advocacy team so you can learn more, so you can get involved, take action with us. We can't do it without you. We need individuals in each district who are meeting with their legislators who are saying this is important to your constituents. So we really need your voice. Invite us to your church or to your group to talk about the issues, to do training, to get people involved. We're here and we are so excited that you're here. Let's do this together. We're really close to time, so I'm keeping an eye on that. Does anybody want to say a last word or offer anything? And definitely thank you for all the conversation in the chats and the links. There's a lot of rich stuff in there.
I just want to say that we should watch out for, you're going to hear a lot of people talking about crime is up because we're releasing too many people from prison, blah, 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 blah. It's not, there's no evidence that that's true at all. But there's a lot of blaming going on, so just be aware.
It's always the easy answer. Reducing crime in our country it's going to take a lot of thought. I just want to add too that we were able to pass a law this year in a tough legislative session to introduce a family liaison into the Illinois Department of Corrections to help family members, to have someone for them to call when things don't go right. We have some work to do with that, but we're hot on that with trying to improve some conditions inside and trying to improve things for family members. We have 1 minute, so anybody want to join in? Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
I want to thank you all again for being here. I'm glad you all were able to appreciate the piece. Thank you so much.
And check out the
Appreciate
auction.
feedback.
Check out our auction because we have some really good pieces painted by people who are in custody, which are pretty amazing.
Yes, the auction will stay open. You can give at any time. The link is open, the event link. You can text to give. Thank you so much for your support. That makes this all possible. We appreciate it. Appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thank you, Harold. We love you.
Thank you. Love you guys too. Appreciate it. Love you all.
Thank you all so much.